Hi, hello, good afternoon. It is February now, 2026, and when they say how stressful is moving house, people just don't really know how stressful it is, and I don't really think it's something that anyone decides to do unless, they are really adamant that it's something they want to be doing. The problem I've got, if anyone's been following my videos, is the fact that I'm not moving properties out of choice. I'm moving because I've been served what is called a no-fault eviction from apparently the person I rent the property off. The only thing is, I've now been served two of those, and neither one of them has been legal. So I have had my what is called a homeless application suspended by my local council, which is Nuneaton and Bedworth, because they didn't do their job properly. And I am going to have to take legal advice as to where I stand with that. At the moment, I'm under housing prevention, and I'm with a young woman who is absolutely amazing. She's been so supportive. Yes, I have been able to get legal aid, but again, I wasn't able to do that until January of 2026. My first no-fault eviction was actually served to me in October of 2025. And at that moment in time, there was no legal aid actually available to me. Citizens' advice didn't know anything. They're not very good with issues when it comes to Section 21s or Section 8s or Section 13s or any other things to do with housing. They will just refer you to the shelter website, which is a registered charity and are absolutely amazing. However, you never get to speak to anybody. Everything is on their website for you to read and try and interpret on your own until legal aid can be provided. And trying to get legal aid in 25 and 26 has been very, very hard to do. I am actually with LDJ's solicitors, and at this moment in time, they are the only solicitor that I know of who provide legal aid to anyone who is being served a Section 21. Now, Section 21 is what they call a no-fault eviction, and despite the law actually changing in October of 2025 last year to give renters more rights and more protection, no-fault evictions can still actually be served to tenants up until May 2026, and this is why it is so stressful and it is so complicated. If the council were just honest and said, look, we don't know what's going on, we don't know how the new laws are going to affect anybody, you need to seek legal aid, fair enough, but they didn't. They got on their high horses and made out like they knew what they were doing. I was wrong. P3, who are a registered charity that support people in preventing homelessness, their staff didn't know what they were talking about, according to the council. We were both treated pretty badly, and I was hoping to obviously sort out the way I was treated in-house. I was hoping, that the council would have took my complaint as being valid, but instead they have sided with their staff and basically said, I'm an idiot, I don't know what I'm talking about, I was stressed, I didn't understand. They've used every excuse imaginable to try and blame me and make me feel like shit. And I've even put that in my emails to them, that, you have dehumanized me, you've belittled me, you've been condescending with the information that you've been given me, you're extremely patronizing, you're telling me, oh, if I'm only on such and such per year, why am I trying to rent a property in the private housing sector that's over £1,000 in rent? Well, because unfortunately, where I live, the lowest rent at the moment for most properties in Nuneaton and Bedworth is about £1,000 a month. And so what a lot of estate agents are doing, even though they won't admit it, they're not taking anyone on universal credit, because they know that you cannot afford the rent on a private property if it is £1,000 a month, because you will not be getting enough in housing benefits or in any benefits from the government if you're on universal credit. They're not even taking into account whether or not you already have a job or whether you're using universal credit to support your income or anything like that. The moment any any time an estate agent hears the word universal credit, you are immediately binned out. Okay, they'll say it's not happening, but it is. And the reason it's happening is because this new rule that has come into law, that came in 2025 in October, doesn't just affect tenants. It affects landlords. It affects estate agents. It affects housing associations. It affects councils. It affects everybody. And because everyone isn't clear and concise in understanding how these new laws and regulations are going to affect them, they do not want to accept any liability if anything was to go wrong. Or, if they were to offer you a tenancy agreement and then come May of 2026, because the law has changed, that tenancy agreement becomes invalid, or they can't charge you any more money, or they can't ask for a larger deposit or whatever. They just don't want to be faced with the new rules and regulations, and they are affecting everybody. So I've ineffectively been served 2 Section 21s that are illegal at a time when the government is changing the law to make Section 21s no longer legal. So I've basically been told by my council, the more times that my alleged landlord fucks up, they haven't used those words, I've been using that word, if I still haven't sorted out a valid Section 21 by May of 2026, then I don't have to leave the property at all. I don't have to leave anyway because my Section 21 hasn't been valid, but it has really, really stressed me and my family out. As you can see behind me, there is a lot of boxes. And the reason there are still boxes in the house is because I've been having to take stuff to storage. I've been doing that since October. I didn't realise how much stuff I had. I didn't realise how stressful it was going to be to move. Up until about before COVID hit, the house was very minimalistic. And a lot of people are going to say, oh no, that's bullshit. Your house has never been minimalistic. But once COVID hit and I started homeschooling my children, especially my middle child, who I've now homeschooled since 2021, a lot of stuff that I have in the house is to enable him with his homeschooling. And all of that has had to go into storage. All of his documents, all of his paperwork, all of the forms I've had to fill out for the DWP, for citizens advice, for my local council, for the local educational authority. All of this is in folders that up until October of last year were on a bookshelf in the house I've been renting for a decade. They have now all had to go in storage. I cannot throw them away. I cannot burn them. I cannot destroy any of these documents for 5 years. And a lot of people have said, well, if they're back from 2021, that's 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, we're in 26. They are 6 years old already. And I'm like, yes, but because I'm now being made homeless, I've got to subsequently keep them for at least another year in case any of the information that is in those folders is required. Because I'm being made homeless. So it has really put me in a situation where I don't have to move out of the property because my Section 21s aren't valid. I can't get rid of anything because that paperwork and documentation may be needed by the courts if I end up having to go to court because my Section 21s aren't legal. And I then have to prove why it's not legal. I then have to prove, how this has affected me, how it's affected my children. And the main way it's affected them is not knowing where we're going to end up, not knowing where we're going to live, you know, having everything they own practically put into storage. And they're quite lucky that, you know, they have somewhere to stay and to sleep temporarily. So I have said to their dad, I'm sorry, you're going to have them. You know, I'll sign everything over to you because I can't have 3 children sleeping in sleeping bags on a floor in a house that hasn't had a valid gas safety certificate for 10 years, that has got dodgy electrics because the landlord won't fix them, that's been under environmental health since 2021, and now I'm being made homeless. And it's just seemed to have snowballed. It's like one problem after another, after another, after another, after another. And there are so many people out there who are suffering the same as me, if not worse. I know there's people in my street that have been made homeless because their landlords have wanted to sell the properties. There are people in my street living in houses with black mould because they're afraid that if they tell their landlord, you need to fix this problem, they're going to be kicked out. And with these new rules and regulations that are coming in that are supposed to protect tenants, at the moment, they're not protecting anyone. If anything, they are causing more problems for people. Because this is the reason why I genuinely believe I've been served Section 21. Because of this new law that's come in. I also believe that I've been served Section 21 because the person that I'm renting off, or persons who I'm responsible to pay my rent to, are being fraudulent. But I can't prove that. I would have to get a solicitor, and it wouldn't be up to me to say, yes, they have committed fraud and they need to be prosecuted. So at the moment, the only thing I can do is stay in contact with my solicitor, the council, and the Citizens Advice Bureau, and do what they advise. And that is, when you get any new paperwork through the post, bring it to us. We will then tell you whether or not it's legal. So at this moment in time, I have received some more documents. They arrived yesterday afternoon. And tomorrow morning, because it's a Monday, I will take these documents to the council house, to P3, to my solicitor, and to Citizens Advice, so that I have got 4 different governing bodies telling me whether or not they think this document is legal or not. Because before, when I have requested or took advice in the past, they have said it has been when it hasn't. And like I said, I don't have a law degree. I am not legally trained. Most people who rent in the rented sector aren't going to be, which is why these organisations and people within your local council should have legal representation to support you if and when you are facing homelessness. But unfortunately, with Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, like I said, the housing solutions team have been absolutely amazing, but the homeless prevention team and environmental health have not. So I am now in a situation where I have been given illegal and wrongful information by 2 different departments. And now I'm having to decide, what do I now do, knowing that these 2 departments are saying something completely different to Housing Solutions, who have turned around and said to me since December of last year, after viewing my case, so it took them from October to December, for me to be transferred to Housing Solutions, because you have to, by law, once you are served a Section 21, the council have got something like 56 days to support you with a homeless application. If that doesn't work, then you get transferred to Housing Solutions, and that's what I've been told. And it's Housing Solutions